Hey, Algebra 2. What I'm going to do is I'm making a quick little tutorial on the box method for dividing polynomials. You might have missed this from Wednesday if you weren't there, or maybe this is just an opportunity for you to relearn the same topic and see it again. Okay, so the box method. The first thing you're going to do is draw your box. The height of the box, I'm actually going to cross out this step. The height of the box I'm actually going to do is going to be the height of the polynomial you're dividing by. Now here's our problem, and our polynomial we're dividing by is x plus 10. So my height of my box, I'm going to make it the same amount as there are terms. So there's two terms here, so I'm going to do this 2 boxes high. And then I'm going to draw some columns. Now the important thing here is make sure you leave the right side open. Don't close it off, because we don't really know how long it's going to go. Now, the next step is write the polynomial you're dividing by on the outside edge of the box. So what I'll do is write the x plus 10 here, x and 10. Then, write the first term of the polynomial you're dividing by, or that's being divided, in the top left box. So the first term of the polynomial being divided, which is this one, the first term is x, 10x squared. Then we're going to highlight the first few diagonals to make them easier to see. I'll show you what I mean. So if you have highlighters, it would be a good idea to follow along with highlighters. So you might want to pause and get some highlighters, and you want to get at least 2. 3 if you can, 3 different colors. Okay, so we're going to highlight the bottom one yellow. Then I'm going to go up to on a diagonal to this next one, and then I'll also highlight the second term. So we already filled in with the first term, and then the second term I'm going to highlight yellow. And then I'm going to choose a new color, or a new highlighter. I'll highlight this one, the next diagonal, and then the next term in our polynomial that's being divided. Okay. Now, next step says use the terms on the left edge and fill in the filled-in box to determine the first term on the top of the box. Okay, so I'm going to use the term that we filled in, which is 10x squared, to determine what's the one above it. So I have to say, what times x equals 10x squared? Well, 10x. And then I fill in the one below that. So 10x times 10 is 100x. Okay. And then I will do step 6. Determine what needs to be put in the box to make the next diagonal combine to make the next term in the polynomial. And let me tell you what that means. So in other words, what do I need to add to 100x to make it equal 98x? Well, I would have to add a negative 2x in order for that to be 98x. Now I do this same process again. What times x equals negative 2x? Well, negative 2. And then fill in the column below that. Negative 20. Negative 2 times 10. Now, if we read the next step in our directions, it says, repeat this process until you write a constant on top of the box. A constant. Remember, a constant is a number without a variable. So this is a constant. This is not a constant because it has a variable next to it. This is a constant because it has no letters or no variables. So when you get a number like that on the top of your box, you're going to write an R next to it. So in this case, I have a negative 2, which is a constant because it has no variable, so I'll write an R right here. Because the last number I find right here is going to be my remainder. Because remember, in division, we often end up with a remainder. Okay. So now, I have to say what plus negative 20 equals negative 20 up here? Well, 0. Okay, and now let me show you how to write your answer, because that's the last step we use in the box. Your answer is here on the top, and we also use the remainder. So now your answer will be 10x minus 2 plus 0, and whatever that remainder is, it goes over what you divided by, x plus 10. So 0 over x plus 10. Now, as we all know, once you have 0 on top of something, it eliminates it because 0 equals to nothing. So my answer will simply just be 10x minus 2. Okay, now let's go through the next one below. We'll do this one a little quicker. So first make my box, make a few columns. Then I will write the polynomial I'm dividing by on the left. And then I will take the first term and write it in the first box. Then I'll take my highlighter, highlight my diagonals. And when the first diagonal, the color I highlight it with, I also highlight the second term. And then I pick a new color. And do pink in this next diagonal. And whatever I highlight that, I highlight the third term. Now we get to work. Now I say, what do I have to multiply times x to equal 7x squared? Well, 7x. And then I fill in the bottom. 7x times negative 8, negative 56, x. Then I say, what plus negative 56 equals negative 54x? Well, plus 2x. And then repeat the process again. X times what equals 2x? 2. And remember, I have a constant there, so that means I need to write remainder, because that last number I come up with is going to be a remainder, because I came up with a constant there. Now, fill in the column. 2 times negative 8, negative 16. And then what plus negative 16 equals negative 16? 0. So remainder will be 0. So let's write out our answer. So now this will all be equal to 7x, it comes from here, plus 2, and then my remainder, plus 0 over whatever I divided by, x minus 8. And remember that 0 over anything just equals 0, so I can just get rid of that. And it's 7x plus 2. Now I'm going to go over to this problem, our last one, because I want to make a point about what happens if you're missing some terms. Now, you need to make sure before you do any division problem, this also goes for synthetic division, that all the terms are there. So what I mean by that is that I need to have a term that has an x to the 3. If it starts with x to the 3, it needs to have x squared, x, and then some constant. Okay, this one has x to the 3 and x, but there's no x squared. That's our missing term. So if it's missing, I need to write it out. And I'll just put 0x squared, because that doesn't change anything, but we need to make note of it. And then write out the rest. X plus 1. Now we continue on and do what we did before. Make our box. Now I have 4 terms, so I'll probably need about 4 columns. And again, leave it open. Then take your polynomial you're dividing by, put it on the left. And then again, take your first term, fill it in here. And then take your highlighter, highlight the diagonals. And the first color goes to the first term. Then take another color, do another diagonal, and the second color goes to that next term. And now this is where you're going to need an additional color. Or you could just leave it open. And I'm going to use blue. And then that blue will go to the last term. Okay, now we can start doing the multiplying. Okay, so now do the same steps like before. X, what times x equals x to the third? Well, x squared. And then x squared times 1 is x squared itself. And then what plus x squared equals 0x squared? Or in other words, what do I have to add to x squared to make it equal 0? Well, just its opposite, negative x squared. Because x squared minus x squared is just 0, or 0x squared. Now, what times x equals negative x squared? Well, negative x. And then multiply the column below. Negative x times 1 is just negative 1x. And then what do I have to add to negative 1x to equal negative 7x? Well, negative 6x. Then again, repeat the process. What times x equals negative 6x? Negative 6. Ah, look, I've got a constant, so that means I need to write r here because my last number is going to be a remainder. Now, multiply the column, negative 6 times 1. And then the last step, negative 6, what do I have to add to it to equal positive 4? Well, I have to add 10. Okay, so then our answer is going to end up being x squared minus x minus 6 plus that same number, the remainder, over what I divided by, so 10 over 1, over x plus 1. There's our answer for that.